Okie dokie. Let's get into this. Quick inventory check. See how we're sitting here. Lots of potions. Lots of things that I have filling my inventory that I may or may not need. Another reason that I really need to play more regularly throughout the week is I cannot remember what in the hell I'm supposed to be doing. I am and I will. Not gonna lie, quest markers would be nice. It is so obviously, yes, I know this is the, resurrected, remastered version, but I mean, this game is so beautiful. Great. I haven't even been anywhere adjacent to running out of mana, so I'm not particularly concerned about that. If you've happened to make it down to the end of your shorts feed or your scrolling reels, whatever avenue you take that gets you to the live streams on YouTube, doesn't matter. I'm just glad, if you come across this, glad you did. Glad you decided to hang out for a little bit. I would not begrudge anybody that scrolled far enough to get to the live streams tonight. But yeah, like I was saying, wouldn't begrudge anyone that scrolled far enough to get to their live streams tonight, simply because I mean, hey, it's easy if you don't have a whole lot going on, and it's also the holidays. So, and I know for a fact that I tend to find the holiday season pretty brutal. And I mean, not in that they're particularly difficult for me, but simply put, they're just a lot. And I kind of trailed off after stating how beautiful I think this game is. Um, Something that I hope you guys won't. Something that I hope you guys won't particularly. Hold against me as far as like my naivete to certain aspects of video games. Um, when I started training MMA back in 2015, I essentially put all games away. Like I hardly watched television, really. And it was like dated a girl with kids, not a whole lot of time for games there. Even if I did have like downtime in between her children lifting weights, running, and going to my MMA classes. Um, and then after that, especially when I was single, I would watch television, um, YouTube videos, Netflix, but that's like in the hours of when I get home from the gym, which at the time was like 10:30, to the time I go to sleep at like midnight, 12:30. There's not a whole lot of media consumption on my end. And I only just stopped training MMA when, my son was born, of course, in May of last year. Stopped training full time. I was still making Saturdays and our Sunday morning open mats, which, by the way, purple belt in jiu-jitsu since April of 22. Um, and then I trained MMA, had a few fights there, some kickboxing. Never got a kickboxing or a boxing match lined up, but just a bunch of jiu-jitsu tournaments in that time. And so when my fiance and I started dating back in 2021, um, I was cutting weight for my second welterweight fight. My first one was at light heavy 205. Or no, excuse me, middleweight 185, which I don't even like to talk about that one. It was embarrassing. I won uh, by TKO, but didn't put the guy away in the first round. It was just a dude that didn't have um, any reason to be in an MMA competition in any capacity. And that was about my only softball as far as MMA went. The next 2 times I would fight at welterweight, which were 6 years apart. Because like I said, I just got ingrained in, I want to train as much as possible, but I don't really want to compete. And then I kind of switched gears to where I wanted to compete, but just jiu-jitsu. And the striking and everything was kind of a means to an end as far as my pursuit of it and going as hard at it as I did. Basically just keep an inventory to gain bonus. Okay. Basically just a means to an end to keep me in constant shape for jiu-jitsu competition, so I didn't have to go to any ridiculous lengths to get in shape. You know, stay ready, ain't got to get ready, right? So aside from a few like boredom stints, like purely to kill boredom stints of playing Diablo 3 with my old roommate, who I might have appear on the channel in some facet, which I think would be pretty cool. I did not play video games, like really at all. So my fiance and I got together. He lived in an apartment near this beautiful connection of sidewalks and trails that I loved to run on. And at the time, you know, I was getting ready for, like I said, my second MMA fight at welterweight, which by the way, my 2 opponents at welterweight for my second and third fight, guys that went pro, 1 fight after they fought me. So, you know, I at least got a little bit of a pat on the back and feather in my cap from the first guy that I fought back in 2015. 6 months into training, by the way. Oh no, excuse me. 7 months into training. He said, "You guys are too strong at 170. I'm going down to 155." Second guy didn't say much. He TKO a dude in the first round. It's hard to, which he did. I was literally sitting on my ass, and at one point, he started blasting me in the face, and I just held my hands up to the ref, like, obviously this is over. I didn't give up. I just knew that I was beaten. You know, I knew what I had left. And I knew how much effort I had put in to control the portion of the fight that I did control. It was done. If we would have stood back up, he would have completely obliterated me worse than he already had. And they weren't, and I'll say this, kid was a fast as fuck boxer. Just so fast. I could have finished that fight, but I simply had not done enough work with MMA gloves and working submissions. It happens. You develop blind spots sometimes. And so I missed out on a couple of, well, two really good spots that I was trying to get into that I just simply couldn't because I didn't have space and I wasn't used to working with the glove. So we ended up getting stood back up from the ground position that I was controlling. And that's when everything went to shit. But in the process of getting ready for that second fight, I would make it back to my fiance's apartment. And I wouldn't have anything to do. Mind you, this is on weekends or like days during the week when I would have half days at work. And so she would say, well, I've got Arkham Asylum, Arkham City, I've got Dark Knight, Fallout, Arkham Asylum, Arkham City, Arkham Knight, Fallout, Skyrim. Like, and you know, of course, somebody goes, hey, why don't you just play a few minutes of Skyrim? I think anybody that's honest with themselves has to be the Sean Bean meme and say one does not simply 12% faster hit recovery. I don't feel like that's particularly useful to me right now. I'm probably wrong about that, but we'll see. I'm going to have to get rid of some of these potions. I got 66 healing points. So 2 of those bad boys will get me up to full health. So we'll hang on to 8 of them. And if it seems as though I'm running afoul of some local baddies, um, you know, we'll deal with that as it comes. So, you know, um, I eventually relented. I started playing Skyrim again, and that was in July of 2021. And I was playing it pretty fervently with the goal of, okay, I'm going to play the living shit out of this game. And then I'm going to fight the Ebony Warrior and finally be done with Skyrim. Now, mind you, again, August of 2021. I finished Skyrim in January of 2023. If that tells you anything at all. And so I didn't really put my hands on another video game until I bought this PC and found one of the Yakuza games um, on sale on Steam. And I simply be simply saw the beginning of Yakuza 4. And I was blown away. Like the lights on the rainy sidewalks looked amazing. You know, it all looked so good. So I was seriously impressed with that. And oddly enough, at the same time that I was not playing video games at all, I got really into Outside Xbox one weekend, like at the beginning of 2019, for no reason. Just kind of like ran across my feed and I was like, oh, this is cool. This is interesting. And yes, I know there were a million other videos on, or rather, a million other channels on YouTube that do the same damn thing. Like Team Screw Attack, What Culture, etc. Eurogamer. Um, but I was really taken with the Outside Xbox crew. I enjoyed them a lot. So for a long time, um, my roommates would kind of give me shit about the fact that I wasn't a gamer, but I watched video game videos all the time. And I'd be like, yeah, well, it's kind of my outlet for my desire to play video games. Just kind of hearing people talk about video games in little excerpts and blurbs. And of course, they're funny. Andy and Mike and Luke, in my opinion, as well, as well, Jane and Ellen. Very, very funny. Very funny folks. I like the content that they produce, from the list videos to some of the more special things. To like all of the Ox Venture stuff. The Ox Venture D&D, Blades in the Dark, all of that. I love it. Love it all. And for whatever reason, whenever I'm playing a From Software game, I don't know why, but um, all I really want to do while I'm playing it is either listen to particular podcasts or outside Xbox. You know, so I genuinely could not tell you the number of times that I have watched um Blades in the Dark, the outside Xbox performance of Blades in the Dark. Um just playing From Software games. How many times I've watched those things in their entirety. So like yeah, I will laud their video game journalism and their senses of humor all day long. But to also say, you know, yeah, that is to say they do make grand background noise. And I mean, obviously, Ellen and Jane being absolutely gorgeous certainly does not hurt their little collective at all. But when you're like me, you clock funny way before you clock pretty. Of course not. For those of you that are new to this, or those of you that stumble across it randomly, I'm quite regularly over encumbered and incapable of carrying new items. So I will be fucking off with scrolls of uh, Town Portal quite a lot. Mucho regular. That'll probably make it impossible for me to pick up this scepter, which is around here. Nice. all paladin stuff. Lame. Oh, hey. Have I activated that? I have now. Oh, yeah. That is the one that I had before. What's this icon over here again? So one could very reasonably ask, given some of my statements in the previous part of the video, if I know that there are a million channels like outside Xbox, or even more, delusional saps that think they have anything to offer anyone in terms of entertainment value by playing video games on YouTube, why do it? Well, to be completely honest with you, I love video games so much. I love them. Like, so much so that after I complete my financial, um, or rather my security industry certification exams, I fully intend to devote quite a bit of my free time to really honing my skills as it comes to A, music production, B, well, let's re-rank these. Um, A, learning how to code, um, learning how to build in Unity and Unreal. And once I do that, if I ever hit any significant financial windfalls or end up generating um generating any particularly substantial amounts of cash flow, um, I certainly intend to go into game design. But I mean, that's an endeavor that, unless I just get extremely lucky, will likely probably take me the next decade. And sure, at that point, we'll be lucky if our robot overlords want to let us play video games at all, or even exist for that matter. And don't get me wrong, I'm not a weird, full blown AI cynic. Some people would probably say, well, if you were smart at all, you would be. And you know what? They may very well have a point. Um, however, I don't. I don't think it's going to be the end of the world. As long as it can just remain in check. You know what I mean? Just like that, huh? Okay. Do you guys want to know what genuinely is my biggest question about this game right now? It is me wanting to know whether or not Resurrected has a cow level. I am super interested in finding that out. And I mean, if someone does want to let me in on that information, I will not at all be bothered or upset about having that spoiled. You know, I could be wrong, but I think I'm gonna need one more skill point before I can summon that fourth Skelly. That's, man, I was really wanting to have a full. I will not be doing that, ma'am. I do so very much appreciate the invitation, however. Okay, goodbye. Adieu, what? Okay. Okay, well, I will do that. And I'm willing to bet that the second, I can't really say the second because I'm not 100% sure when the timing will be. However, okay. I will not be hiring any of these girls. Oh, somebody had to say it. I'm not saying what she said was right. I'm just saying I get it. Yeah, a paladin I am not. So we will come down here to, what is her name? Akara? It is indeed. So what I was saying before, oh dear. A go save Kane fetch quest? I can do that. That sounds awesome. Okay, so let's clear off these minor mana potions. Right, yeah. These will all be lights. That's a full heal. That's a full heal. I really don't see myself throwing a ton of shit while I play this. But I mean, who knows? I could be entirely incorrect. So, still going to get rid of that though. If there's one thing the last Diablo game taught me, it was get rid of that shit you don't need. Very quickly. There is no point in being recreationally over encumbered. Man, I'm so tired. I cannot understate how wonderful it is. When you're in the works, how wonderful it is to have a sizable family and how awesome it is for my son to get to spend time with his aunts, uncles, cousins, grandparents. I love it. You know, because we did not have a big family when I was a kid. But Jesus, it does come with a little bit of tribulation attached to it. Now, this does give me a +1 to skeleton mastery. So the quality of my skeletons would go down without me being currently able to increase their numbers. We will refrain. I'm not really using that kind of magic right now, so I will get rid of it. This, on the other hand, has very good perks to it. But I need 11 strength to be able to use it. And by the time I got to that point, I don't think it's too foolish to say that I would no longer need that item. I'm just doing away with all of my less than spectacular options. Hmm. -1 skeleton mastery is not sounding too bad. I'm not at a point where I've needed my own melee capabilities yet, though. Not really. Anyway. So I will just sort of let it ride for now. Of course not. It's crap. I mean, these potions are crap as well. However, could be useful in a less than advantageous scrap, so So to circle back to what I was attempting to explain when I was mentioning that I wanted to learn about game design. Is despite the fact that I absolutely love video games, just because kind of the way I grew up, as well as the way I grew up, as well as the activities that I found myself engaging in my adult years, such as you're pretty heavily steeped in a lot of self improvement, such as running. I'm a runner, love to run. Love to run. You know, I definitely have the aspiration of wanting to run a marathon. I've been pretty well training for one for the last, I don't know how many years. I was going to run one after my last fight in August of 2021. However, broken nose and broken ribs. And not to mention, just I don't cut weight hard for competition, but I do cut the last 5-10 pounds. You know, pretty provincial. However, I walk around at like 205, 215. So 45 pounds of weight loss for a dude with a regular job whose sole aspiration is not mixed martial arts. That's kind of a lot. You know, there are a lot of guys that try to stay as strong as they can, like all the way up to when they really have to pull that weight out of their body. And for me, it's always been kind of a thought of, well, okay, what I'm going to do is go train in the hyperbolic time chamber. You know, i.e., do a ton of cardio and sparring um, with the weight vests on. Yeah. So 21 got stuffed. 22 got away from me, as is the way with jujitsu. Superficial knee injuries happen quite often, and I got one. Boy, did I get one. But then 2023, I was on a very solid track. I think I was running about um 27 miles every 5 days. So I was finally getting right into that vein that I needed to be in. And when you're able to run 5 miles in one stint without, mind you, not without changing pace, fixing my posture, things like that. But when you're able to run a straight up 5 mile burst without stopping, it's like you're pretty much where you need to be to run a marathon, or so I'm told. Um, and then planning on doing 15K to warm up for the marathon. But at the end of September of 2023, I found out my son was going to be born. And that just became the most important thing to me. Naturally, during the week training, like after work, got down to provincial at best. Still had my Saturday morning classes and my Sunday open mats. And I was also teaching Thursday evening classes during that time. Well, eventually it got down to the point that I was just doing Saturdays that I didn't have to work. Um, Sunday morning open mats, teaching my classes on Thursday night, still doing whatever kind of extracurricular weight training and running that I could get in. But no matter how much I love video games, they will always hold like this air of frivolity to them. And I know the word is pronounced frivolity. But it is one of the few words that I will just butcher on purpose and tell people to kiss my ass if they went to correct me on that. So yeah, that's basically how I stumbled into YouTube. Just like it's not a hobby, baby. It's my failed attempt at a side hustle. I saw something purple. I know I did. So a lot of people will tell you that jujitsu and mixed martial arts is good for the psyche. And I think that's true. If you're the right type of person, it can be really good for you. But it also gives you this sense of gives you this sense of like Jim Morrison style bravado in I'm the Lizard King. I can do anything. Like if my brain was kind of like just the fact that I've done so many things that I would have never imagined myself doing. And that like you hear it put that way and it seems kind of horrific. Like you've done a ton of things that you could have never imagined yourself doing. Yeah, like I never would have guessed in a million years that I would have ever stepped foot into an MMA gym, let alone ever taken a fight or chosen to compete in a tournament, a martial arts tournament of any kind. And yet, here but for the grace of God go I. So, in essence, what you can find out about me is I basically trained that way kind of more tightly knit, close training partners. Get to really pick and choose who I do and don't roll with. And that was all fine and good until I got my knee blown up by an inside heel hook, and that was in January. And I have not trained jujitsu since. So I really, 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 really need to hop on that. So yeah, like I was saying, you give a basic dude purple belt in jujitsu, he starts thinking that he can accomplish other things in life. All right, folks, we have just a few more minutes. I don't have a heart out per se. However, I would for once like to have a stream VOD that does not have Akata. Yeah, for once, I don't want a blank Elgato logo sitting at the bottom of my screen when my stream ends. So we'll get this done as cleanly as we possibly can. I feel like I'm leaving so much on the table if I do not come back for this stuff. Which is doubly hilarious because, like I mentioned earlier, once again, I am recreationally over encumbered. There's no reason for me to be like this. I just am what I am, and that's all that I am. All right, guys. I think what I'm going to do is go ahead and call this a game. Thanks for listening to me ramble. Thanks for listening to me. I haven't really done any fomenting, so I can't really Thank you for that. However, I do appreciate the company. To anyone who stumbles across these videos, and I appreciate those folks, denizens of YouTube, that I hope will view these in the future after I put up the heavily redacted versions of them. Once again, guys, this is James Does Blank, signing off. P.S. We're actually going to be back tomorrow with another episode, because I want to pay for more than an hour this weekend. I'll have time to edit a longer video. Thanks, everybody. Have a good night.